Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Wednesday, October 26, 2016.
Commissioner Rivas, Repenning, James, Davis, Jacinto are present. President James, we have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Tim Tyson, Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, Melinda Bartlett, Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Cheyenne Bedin, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Chris Smith, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we do not have any speaker cards under general public comment, no commentary under the Neighborhood Council commentary section, and we did receive a speaker card under item number 11 if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Campos. So we will close general public comment as well as the Neighborhood Council category of commentary. Our first item of business, the approval of the meeting minutes from the meeting of Monday, October 3rd, 2016. Is there a second to my motion to approve those meeting minutes by Commissioner Repenning? Any objection? Without objection, we will approve those meeting minutes. Agenda items 1 through 6 are assessment hearings for street lighting districts included in council districts 4, 5, 11, 9, and 13. Mr. Flamenco, are you here? You are. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting. Items 1 and 3 to 6 pertain to lighting districts which we are creating in conjunction with private development projects. Item 2 pertains to lighting districts which we are creating in conjunction with MTA's Purple Line, Wilshire and Fairfax Station. Ballots for items 1 through 6 were mailed on September 15, 2016. Ballots for items 1 through 6 must be received by the City Clerk's office by next Wednesday, November 2nd. We have not received any objections to date on items 1 through 6. We are requesting for the board to adopt and forward items 1 through 6 forthwith to City Council.
Okay, no objections received on 1 through 6. Any questions on 1 through 6? I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda items 1 through 6, seconded by Commissioner Jacinto. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda items 1 through 6. Any issues sending those forthwith? We will send those forthwith. Agenda item number 7, Council District 1 requested hardship waiver from the above ground facilities ordinance requirements for the underground requirement adjacent to 680 West Avenue 28 on the Pepper Avenue side of the lot, recommending that the board approve the request for a hardship waiver from the below-grade requirement of the Los Angeles Municipal Code, Section 62.082A, adjacent to 680 West Avenue 28 on the Pepper Avenue side of the lot, and 2, authorize AT&T to install an above-ground cabinet 40.5 inches high by 42.8 inches wide by 19.89 inches deep in the public right-of-way adjacent to 680 West Avenue 28 on the Pepper Avenue side of the lot. Mr. Ledoux on number 7. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jeff Ledoux. I work with Bureau of Engineering Central District. This is a AT&T high-speed internet cabinet to be placed, as it says, adjacent to 680 West Avenue 28. This is in CD1, and they are remaining neutral on this at this point in time. I received no emails or phone calls, either pro or con, on this item. And it's in the Cypress Park, Glassell Park Community Design Overlay Zone, which is why we're asking for a hardship waiver. Basically, in this particular case, they're asking for the hardship waiver because there is not enough room in the public right-of-way for them to place their their underground climate-controlled vault.
It's the technical request, not the financial request.
No, not financial, technical.
Okay. Any questions on agenda item number 7? I don't have any questions on number 7. Commissioner Santos made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 7, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 7. Any issue in sending number 7 forthwith? We will send number 7 forthwith. Thank you, sir. I'm going to guess you're here on number 8 as well. Number 8, Council District 13, hardship waiver from the above ground facilities ordinance requirements for underground requirement adjacent to 775 North Heliotrope Drive, recommending that the board approve the request for a hardship waiver from the below-grade requirement of the Los Angeles Municipal Code Section 62.082A for installation of a cabinet adjacent to 775 North Heliotrope Drive, and 2, authorize AT&T to install above-ground cabinet 45 inches high by 25 inches, 45 inches high by 27 inches wide by 14 inches deep in the public right-of-way adjacent to 775 North Heliotrope Drive. Mr. Ledoux on number 8.
This is a AT&T cabinet again. It is what they call an SAI cabinet. It has copper cables going into it for normal phone service. This is a brand new cabinet for AT&T. It is in CD13, Mitch O'Farrell's district. They are remaining neutral at this point in time. I have received no phone calls or emails, either pro or con, on this particular one. It is in the Vermont Western Station Neighborhood Area Specific Plan, and they basically, the planning department has stated in this case that they have no jurisdiction for cabinets in the public right-of-way, so they really are staying out of this as far as recommendation goes. The reason this is not being undergrounded is because the copper wires going into this junction box that service must be kept dry and free of moisture, and it is very hard to do that in an underground vault. It's much easier to do it in an above ground vault. So for technical reasons, they're asking for the hardship waiver.
Okay, and the Bureau of Engineering agrees with that request?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Cinto?
Thank you, President James. Jeff, there's a question. I just had the clarification on the interdepartmental correspondence now that the Bureau of Street Lighting is also, because it is in the right-of-way for the Bureau of Street Lighting, that they are also granting a revocable permit as
Yes,
well.
they are.
That's new. I haven't seen that yet. So is that going to be standard practice moving forward when it is in the BSL's right-of-way?
Yes, it is. The vast majorities of these cases are in BSL's right away.
Great.
And this one is.
Thank you, Jeff.
Anything further on number 8? Commissioner Cinto's made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 8, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 8. Any issue sending number 8 forthwith? We will send number 8 forthwith. Thank you, sir. Agenda item number 9, Council District 13, task order solicitation number 3 to HMC Architecture, continued from October 19th, 2016, recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to issue a revision of the task for solicitation number 3 to HMC Architects, increasing the budget authority from $82,803 to $131,000 for architectural design and related consulting services in connection with the Echo Park Skate Park project. Mr. Campbell on number 9.
Good morning. My name is Richard Campbell. The skate park was originally designed, or going to be designed, as a 3,000 square foot skate park to the north of the existing rec building. During the pre-design phase, we met with Councilman O'Farrell and the people from Rec and Park, and it was mutually decided to relocate the skate park to the old existing swimming pool. That caused the skate park to increase from 3,000 square feet to about 7,500 square feet, with an intended increase in the design cost. So that's what we're asking for today, is permission to increase the design cost by about $50,000.
Thank you, sir. Any because of the relocation, in essence?
Yes, because of the relocation, it increased the scope of the design.
Sure. Understood. Thank you. Any questions on number 9? I don't have any questions. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 9, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 9. Any issue sending it forthwith? We'll send it forthwith. Thank you, sir. Agenda item number 11. We'll come back to number 10. Sorry, Mr. Lorenzen, but we have a speaker card on number 11, and I figure it won't take as long, perhaps. We'll see. Agenda item number 11, Bureau of Engineering, Bureaus of Contract Administration, and the Bureau of Sanitation. Requested contract award for maintenance hole resetting, sewer and storm drains, recommending that the board first declare All American Asphalt to be the first low bidder, to be non-responsive as discussed in the report, which we will hear from Mr. Martinez. Second, receive and file transmittal number 3. Number 3, declare Manhole Adjusting Incorporated the second low bidder to be the lowest responsible bidder and award them a contract for the project for $3,761,380 and authorize myself or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute the contract after approval as to form has been obtained by the city attorney. Carmelo Martinez on number 11, and a representative of Manhole Adjusting Incorporated is here if we have any questions. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. My name is Carmelo Martinez. I'm with LA Sanitation Wastewater Collection Systems Division. Again, we have a request to award a contract, as President James stated, to Manhole Adjusting Inc., the second low bidder. Sewer and storm drain maintenance holes are paved over routinely due to paving activities from street services. So as a result, we have to...
And just so we're clear, Carmelo, that's standard procedure.
That is correct, President
Yeah,
James.
the machines can't operate that.
Right. They
maneuver those, so go ahead.
Exactly. That is, SOP, standard procedure. And in order to properly maintain and inspect our city pipelines, such as sewers and storm drains, we need to uncover these structures, bring them back up to grade so we can get in there and conduct urgent cleaning, urgent inspections. In that manner, we can prevent sewer spills from getting into our catch basins, polluting our waterways, or backing up into the residents' homes and creating a public health concern. LA Sanitation...
Not to mention taking out what would otherwise be a pothole of sorts, but go ahead.
It could
And
cause a
additional
pothole too. I
damage.
mean, that does happen from time to time. Correct. LA San and BOE jointly prepared a bid proposal. We identified over 6,000 maintenance hole structures at a cost of just over $3.5 million for a duration of 3 years, with an option to extend the contract 1 additional year if required. The contract was advertised on June 21st. There were 3 bids received. All American was the first low bidder. They were 11.65% below the city engineer's estimate. Maintenance Hole Adjusting Inc., they were 7.27% above the city engineer's estimate. The difference in cost was just about $700,000 between the 2 bids. Both bids were reasonably close to the city engineer's estimate and reasonably balanced. So from that perspective, they're both reasonable bids. BIP participation goals for the project were 4% MBE, 2% WBE, 25% SBE, 8% EBE, and 3% DVV, with a mandatory VIP outreach documentation requirement using LA Vavin. All American did not complete the mandatory VIP subcontracting requirement. That was a mandatory requirement in the bid proposal, and as stated in the bid proposal, their bid is rendered non-responsive because of that. The second low bidder did comply with the VIP outreach requirement. They did perform it. They also comply with the minimum subcontractor minimum requirement of 6%, which was also mandatory, so they met both those objectives. Their participation, recognizing that this particular project is very simple and we don't really have a lot of construction trades that we can just, outreach to, their their pledge participation is as follows. They were able to obtain 7.02% OBE and 0.2% MBE SBE. MIA has complied with all city policies. They have also worked on many contracts in the past. There are no unresolved problems or compliance issues associated with this particular contractor. Last but not least, PRC has approved the budget of $3,941,380, including a contingency. And the status of financing is basically for that amount. There is no impact to the general fund. So in conclusion, we are recommending that the first low bidder, All-American, be declared non-responsive, and the contract be awarded to the second low bidder, who has basically complied with all the contract requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Just something that I would note, and you can answer this perhaps, and I know that we have a representative from Manhole Adjusting Inc., and we don't have any type of protest from All-American Asphalt here. But both of the bidders we received 3 bids, correct?
Correct.
All right. And while both of these bidders are, it's referenced that they're OBE and MAI, even though they don't necessarily need it here, it would have been irrelevant, I guess, at the end of the day, as a local business enterprise. But all of them have essentially all zeros. I mean, they both barely meet the mandatory subcontracting minimum.
Correct.
But they're all essentially zeros on the MBE, WB, SBE, EBE, DVBE. They achieve it on the OBE, and they themselves are. So, recognizing that we only received 3 bids, the bidders themselves are not listed as an MBE or WBE in any way. It's a low subcontracting minimum because I'm going to assume that this is work that the primes do themselves, and that's the way
that's correct. Yes,
that it works. But given that, what is unique about this that none of the bidders that we get end up with any participation? I recognize that they go through our business inclusion program outreach, but what's any knowledge of why there's no success here?
Yeah, President James, that's actually an excellent question. And the thing here is that the contract is very straightforward. The activities are limited, to say the least. It's just driving up to a structure that has been paved over, jackhammering, taking out the frame and cover, putting a layer of cement, or perhaps setting some bricks on top of it, putting the frame back on, and backfilling the structure with concrete, and off we go to the next location. It's limited, to say the least. The only thing that can be subcontracted is the supplier. So in this case, the frame and covers, they are required to purchase some frame and covers, so they don't manufacture the frame and covers. The prime doesn't manufacture the frame and covers themselves, so they have to go to a manufacturer. In our area, there's really only 2.
There's 2?
And they're both OBE.
Both OBE?
Yes, and that's really the bottom line. And the other OBE is the concrete and pavement mix supplier. Which again, they're all suppliers that's where we have the opportunity, and the activities themselves are limited, to say the least.
So if we don't get the bids, if we don't get a diverse or more inclusive pool of bidders, which we can't control, all we can do is put out the request, the solicitation for bids, and we had a range here between the city's estimate of below and above, then that's where we have to maybe solve this challenge as it relates to this type of work?
I don't think that's really going to do it. Again, it gets back to the uniqueness of the project, to the limited amount of activities that are essentially done, and back to the fact that it's basically we're outreaching to suppliers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jacinto, thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. Carmel, I'd like to ask you a question regarding AAA. Have
Yes.
they done previous work with the city?
Oh, they've done, AAA, they've done quite a bit of work with the city. Primarily, they're a paving contractor. So in the clean water program, we don't see them too much as a paving contract, but they've done this type of project before on a number of occasions that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rivas.
Do you know if if All-American has done work with the city, have they done the outreach before? Or is there a reason they didn't do the outreach this time?
As far as I can remember, on previous contracts that they've been awarded, they did do the outreach. In this particular case, Commissioner Rivas, I just don't know why they didn't do it. I mean, it's stated in bold letters in the contract. We did receive some communications from them. They said it was an oversight, which I tend to agree with, but unfortunately, the rules are the rules, and this is mandatory.
Thank you, Commissioner Rivas. Anything else on that? Commissioner Davis, sorry.
I wanted to ask the available work that could be contracted was minimal. Is that correct?
The minimum subcontracting requirement was 6% on this particular contract.
And then the engineering estimate of the project was how much?
It's roughly $3.5 million or thereabouts.
And the AAA prime contractor estimated what in terms of his pledge? It was...
There was no pledge. They did not do their outreach.
Oh, I see. So,
yeah,
exactly.
So it's zero across the board.
And then the one that we selected, how much were they over the engineering's estimate?
They were slightly, it was a 7.27%. I know that doesn't mean much. I have their bid here somewhere.
70, you said 700?
It's 7% high.
Oh.
How many?
700,000.
They were about 250,000 over the estimate.
Fair enough.
But they were how much from the one that didn't do the appropriate outreach in Bavin? They were how much over there?
About 700,000, 700,000 roughly.
So it's 700 grand. And I certainly understand what you're saying. We can't reward AAA if they didn't go through the Bavin process, even though there wasn't much work to be done there. The $700,000, we don't consider that significant.
Actually, if we're going by the city engineer's estimate, they're on both sides, one of the border, if you will. One is on one side and the other one is on the other. But if you look at the values in their bid, they're very reasonably balanced when you look at the specific bid items compared to the city engineer's estimate.
And in terms of the numbers of, is this an area where I guess they do have some individuals from the small business, emerging business community that do compete for this sometimes, and I know we can't predict what the outcome of the results going to be when we go out to do our processing on that. But what I was wondering, in terms of this tool we often use to go back out to bid, I think I remember just a couple of weeks ago, last week maybe, that we had one that was certainly much less in terms of the delta. It was much less than $700,000. And we decided to use the tool of going back out to bid again. In this case, we're only talking about one individual prime contractor that we were looking at as, you know, the dust settled given all of these issues. But being concerned about the $700,000, when does the Bureau decide that they could implement the tool of going back out to bid again?
If there was, I mean, based on my experience, if there was more of a difference between the city estimate and the contractor's bid, we generally would go by a 15% delta, if you will. So anything above 15% would certainly raise my eyebrows, and it'll probably raise a lot of other people's eyebrows. They're actually about half of that, so that would be kind of our rule of thumb to answer your question,
I
Commissioner.
guess I'm looking at the market. I don't think there's any law that says we can't look at the market. When we look at the market in terms of what has been bidded, notwithstanding the fact that they didn't go through BIVN, but yet at the same time, there's a $700,000
Right.
delta between what we've been presented and this what we are taking. And yet, last week, you chose a much lesser case on a contractor and said it was time to go out to bid. I'm unclear what the criteria is for going back out to bid again. And secondly, why, when $700,000, when we look at the market, is on the table here, that whatever those criteria are, that wouldn't be applied or could not possibly be applied here?
That's a very valid question. I am not familiar with the specifics of the contract that went to the board last week, so there might be specific requirements that I am not aware about where they chose to go back out to bid. In this particular contract, what I can tell you is that the second low bidder, they're reasonably within range. The other issue is if we go, right now we have an existing contract that's coming to an end. So we don't, we're finalizing that contract. The work that is involved, we need to basically pick that up with a new contract so we can continue raising the structures. Otherwise, we could be, jeopardizing spills and backups and whatnot. If we go back out to bid, it's going to delay awarding the contract. We're going to have to basically put the structures that we identify on an emergency on-call contract, which is probably going to cost the city 4 times what it would cost to do to raise the structure under this particular contract.
So the cost-benefit analysis of this choice versus going back out to bid is over $700,000.
I would say pretty close to that. Just doing mentally here.
Could I, Commissioner Davis, if I could add just a couple things in response to your question, all very valid points, by the way, as Mr. Martinez indicates. These are case by case typically, and I understand that the Bureau has a policy of looking at, once you hit 15% above the city engineer estimate, then you explore whether or not to recommend to the board that we deny all bids and go back out to bid. And we're not at that 15% here. There are a lot of moving parts that go to that decision too, and some of it has to do with, like Mr. Martinez said, whether or not we have a contract in place. How could we continue the service, whether it's a service that we're continuing or not, whether it is a public safety issue, which this is a public safety issue on a couple of different fronts. What would be the likelihood of additional costs were we to go out to bid or to deny these bids? Mr. Martinez indicated that to pay the emergency on-call contractor to do this work would cost us potentially 4 times as much. What would the response be, and that's kind of your issue about talking about the market, what would the response to the market be if we were to go back out to bid? I don't think as much as we would want, I don't think we're going to get any better MBE, WBE numbers because these bidders, they all came in at the same.
I'm looking at cost-benefit analysis,
not those numbers, but even with those numbers, we had, I could surmise, and I will put on the record just factually, I'm not going to speculate too much, but All American Asphalt knows how to do our business inclusion program. We do a lot of work with them. They know how to do it. And for some reason, it wasn't done here. And that's a fact, and it's also a fact that their bid was 11.65% low. Those are all facts. So from that, if I were in a court of law, I might try to speculate in front of a jury, but that's not what we're doing here. I just think that that given I think the risk, and that's what I think you're attempting to weigh here, is the risk reward of the $700,000. Yeah. Well, but it's only $700,000 when you look at what the bidder that did not do the business inclusion program posted. He could have come in at $100,000. It could have been $1,700,000 if they weren't going to do the BIP outreach. So
going out the bid is because of the possibility that we could probably get this thing bidded at $700,000 less. There was a snafu.
Well, but our own estimate was $3.5 million.
Yes, but
that's $200,000.
I'm looking at the actuality of what we could have possibly have gotten based upon the evidence presented. Certainly, the issue that they didn't go through BAVN, we cannot reward.
True.
But that does not take away the fact that there was a bid that was $700,000 less that we could have possibly had. And having said that, then looking at this, I mean, obviously you've raised the issue that this is an emergency, and that.
Well, no, it would be. We would have to go to the emergency on-call list if we didn't let out this contract.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So not that it is an emergency,
Right.
but
So
we would.
that was my issue in terms of when I looked at the tool that we have employed often, and it's certainly the discretion of the Bureau. I was just questioning, wouldn't that tool be effective in this case? If we're looking at what we could get the best cost for. But you have raised the issue that there is an emergency situation, which is something that prior to looking at this issue was not evident.
Well, I didn't mean to intimate that it was an emergency situation as much as I meant to echo what Mr. Martinez said, that because the existing contract is expiring, to get the work done, we would have to go to an emergency on-call contractor to get the work done to continue with the public safety implementations of what we have to do here. And there's risk that, according to Mr. Martinez, we would end up spending a lot more than we would have to otherwise because of the emergency on-call situation. It's all risk. I mean, we could do that if the board wanted to do it. We could do that and take the risk and see how long our $700,000 that sits here lasts. But there's risk involved. If we accept the contract now, we know what the hard costs are going to be. And I would just remind folks that it's not $700,000 over what the city estimated. It's $200,000 over what the city estimated.
Correct. Yes.
And that is within the realm of percentages of what the Bureau would typically not review for recommending to us to deny all bids.
Right, and one other thing that I just want to add quickly is we're not even considering the possibility that one of the pipes could back up into somebody's home, and we can spend on a claim due to a backup into several $100,000 just on one claim.
Sure.
So that, I just want to add that as well.
Well, it was certainly a question that should definitely be asked, given the fact that we could have been lucky and
Absolutely.
got a really great price for this service, which would have been great for the city and our overall goals. So that was the reason for asking the question. I mean, I think if someone presented to us an opportunity, I mean, it's unfortunate that they had a problem, but it's certainly something that we as the board would certainly want to look at.
Right, and I absolutely have no problem with All American. I've worked with them before, and actually both contractors, they do a great job. They do a great job for the city. So it's just regrettable that they didn't comply with the subcontracting mandatory requirements.
And the sad part about it is that it wasn't that much work available in the first place.
It would have been hard to do, is what you're saying.
That's the sad part.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, for us too. Anything further, Commissioner Davis? Thank you for the discussion and the questions, Commissioner Davis. Excellent. Commissioner Cinto?
Yep, I just wanted to appreciate the conversation. I do find it's problematic that AAA did not comply with the BIP outreach after doing significant work and being in the seat for a while too. It sort of gut instincts is that it doesn't sit right. So there is the cost-benefit analysis. Definitely we should always consider too using discretion, but I'm ready to go with staff's recommendation on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Cinto. I'll second it. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 11.
Thank you.
Any issue sending it forthwith? We'll send number 11 forthwith. Mr. Martinez, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Agenda item number 10, tree removal, Council District 10, exposition line pedestrian improvements west from Crenshaw to the city limits. Recommending that the board first find that the tree removals are classified as minor alteration of existing streets, sidewalks, and gutters involving sidewalk widening with existing curb, no roadway reduction involved, and does not involve the removal of a scenic resource. Number two, that the action is exempt under Article 3, Section 1, Class 1, Category 20, modernization of existing sidewalk widening to full width of the City of Los Angeles Environmental Quality Act guidelines from 2002. That none of the exceptions to the exemption set forth in Section 15300.2 of the State California Environmental Quality Act guidelines apply to the project. And two, review and approve the removal of 38 various species of trees for the reconstruction of off-grade public sidewalks, curbs, and gutters. Tree replacements are required. And Mr. Lorenzen, you could welcome, sir. Thank you. And just start with a little bit of a summary of the nature of the project, what we're doing, and its funding source, and all that.
Okay. Good morning, President James, Commissioners, and a special welcome and congratulations to Commissioner Rivas. It's good to see you, and the Bureau looks forward to working with you in the future, and we actually have a meeting with you this afternoon. We will see you then. As Commissioner James has indicated, the Bureau of Street Services is preparing to embark upon an ambitious program relative to the exposition line pedestrian improvements on the west side of Expo Line. The limits of this project are between Crenshaw and La Cienega. It's actually, as I indicated, a very ambitious project in which we'll be improving the pedestrian access for this entire stretch. For the most part, the sidewalks on this portion of the Expo Line are very small, 7 to 8 feet in width. There are a total of 64 trees out there, actually 66, and 2 of them are dead. 64 trees out there that are actually being impacted by this project. Those will include 18 Indian laurel fig trees and 20 other various species of trees. As Commissioner James has indicated, the Bureau actually did perform a notice of exemption for this project approximately 2 years ago. The NOE dealt with the project, the sidewalks, all of the other improvements that are going to be performed out here, as well as landscaping that will include new street trees and other landscaping, although it did not specifically address the tree removals. The NOE, for that reason, is somewhat lacking in this respect, but regardless of that NOE, the Bureau, as it always does when it is involving street tree removal, performed a CEQA guideline informational sheet checklist. We went down that informational sheet, and we have determined, the Bureau has determined, that the trees involved do not constitute a stand of trees, nor are they a scenic resource, as that was actually indicated in the exemption notice. That was specifically related in the exemption notice. The project will require the removal of 38 trees. The 18 ficus are included in the removal. These ficus range in size from approximately 12 inches in diameter to about 20 inches in diameter and from 20 to 35 feet in height. As you can see from the photos that I provided, they are in relatively small tree wells. Some of them are actually in a 3-foot area of planting that has been extremely disrupted by the trees. Because of the minimal width of the sidewalk, the option of expanding tree wells doesn't exist for this project. So the Bureau is recommending that these 18 ficus as well as the 20 additional trees
that are basically being removed because of their quality. They are not in very good health. They may not be impacting the sidewalk, but the trees are very, very weak. And because of that, we're recommending that they be removed. 23 trees will remain on the project. 23 various species will remain. We will be planting 76 trees to fulfill the 2-for-1 requirement at the Board of Public Works.
Would they be planted on site?
They will be planted on site. This project will be a contiguous streetscape when we get done. The big issue here is what the Bureau has done, and per the board's requirements and CEQA requirements, is that we have gone through the entire CEQA review of the project. I would say that in the future that we will ensure that any notice of exemption specifically addresses the street tree removals. This is something that we've dealt with not only on Bureau projects, but on other projects, private projects as well, that the street trees are not, or protected trees for that matter, are not specifically addressed in the environmental documentation. And I would just say that thanks to Mr. Tyson, the head of the Urban Forestry Division, over the last 2 or 3 years that we've been dealing with the California Environmental Quality Act, that we have come a tremendous distance in this relatively short time, in the way that we are fulfilling the spirit of the California Environmental Quality Act. I truly believe, and the Bureau opines, that we are fulfilling the spirit of the CEQA. The CEQA does not require anything set in stone, so that those steps that we are taking in our assessments and in our review do comply with the spirit of CEQA. So we are recommending that you approve the 38 removals, and as I've stated, we will be planting 76 trees out there, as well as the remaining 23 trees. So there will be almost 100 trees on this project. If you have any questions specific to the project, I have staff here. They can address those questions, the engineers who worked on the project. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
I would just mention first, Mr. Lorenzen, thank you again, sir, and to Mr. Tyson, the goodwill that has been created because of your division's work, Mr. Tyson, your work, Mr. Lorenzen, your work, in the last 18 months or so, as we've tightened up the CEQA process related to tree removals, is the reason that we don't have an objection present on the record here this morning to the fact that the notice of exemption did not specifically include the street tree removals. It did include street trees. And as you said, the spirit of CEQA and the work that the Bureau did through its checklist to ensure that the spirit of CEQA and the work that was done, the background work that was done to get us to this point was done. And the goodwill that we've established with the community on where we are today has resulted in our ability to have this discussion as is this morning. So thank you, sir. Commissioner, and to Mr. Tyson. Commissioner Penning?
Sure. I just, going through the photos, it seems like, you have the ficus there that are providing a lot of shade. It looks like the others are a kind of mixture of trees that aren't particularly compelling in terms of the shade that they provide. Obviously, the ficus are the ones that are always most likely to need to come out because of the damage that they do to the sidewalks. The one thing I would say, this looks overall like a great improvement for the community once the new trees have had a chance to grow a little bit. In terms of the widening of the sidewalk, all of that, I would say is overall going to be a great improvement to the community. I'm really happy that you're going to find locations for the full 2-to-1. You didn't mention what species you want to replace with, but I would just hope that whatever you're going to put out there is going to really provide that shade, because, for me, that pedestrian-friendly sidewalk is a sidewalk that has shade.
If you would like to know the species, staff is here. They could answer that question if you would like that question answered. I would also like to say that Council District 10 is very supportive of this project and very much wants to see this move forward. It's being funded by the Transportation Grant Program.
Right.
So
I knew that the Bureau had applied for that, so.
it's been in the works for a long time. So this project's been in the works. And I also will say that this will also go a long ways towards providing, as you have stated, mobility impaired accessible sidewalks. Because the sidewalks at this point are not accessible. And really it's to provide the access from station to station, which is not possible right now. It is just simply impossible to go from station to station. If you were even if with a cane, it would be very difficult, much less a walker or a chair. It would be very, very difficult to access this location.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is this, this is on Jefferson, is that near La Cienega area?
Yes, this is on the Expo line. Part of it's on Expo, part of it's on Jefferson, from La Cienega to Crenshaw. We're actually going around the corner on a couple of projects, I believe. Mr. Tyson, isn't this where we had that location where we're going around the corner with those trees? Yes, okay. We're going around. It's not all on one street. It's actually on a couple of different streets in that area. And we did that so that the neighbors in the surrounding residential area could access. There was one in particular, one location, I forgot the intersection, that literally you could not get from the residential area out to the line because of the condition of the sidewalks. So.
With the number of trees that are being removed and more importantly, the number of trees that are going to be replaced, they're going to be placed there, almost, as you said, almost 100 trees when we get to that point at the conclusion of the project. I think it would be helpful to hear from your team just a brief summary of the species that they've selected.
Okay. Charles? Mr. Strouder from the Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. My name is Charles Strouder. Hello to the Bureau representatives and to President James and commissioners. The species, we're planning to replace the tree removals with 119 trees, so we're going beyond what's required. We're trying to maximize tree planting. The trees that we've selected are Chinese pistache trees, the East African yarwood, crepe myrtle, and maidenhair trees. The crepe myrtle trees, they're a smaller stature tree. They don't require, or they're not going to provide a great deal of shade. It's more ornamental, but they're for areas that have above grade utilities like electrical lines. Replacing the ficus trees are the yarwood, and that is an evergreen tree. It's an evergreen canopy tree. And so we tried to get as large as we could, as much of a green impact to replace the ficus trees. Without, there are also trees that won't be damaging the sidewalk as much. They don't have aggressive surface roots like the ficus trees do. And the Chinese pistache tree is another tree that provides canopy. However, it is deciduous, so you're going to have a little more year-round interest.
Great, thank you, sir. Commissioner Davis.
Do you all have in the urban forestry division a theme in terms of trees that you plant around developments like this Expo line? Is there some input from council about trees we select? Is there an overall theme that we have chosen down the specific Expo line in particular, maybe? How does this tree selection process work?
It's project by project. With this project, we did meet with the council district and we went over proposed trees and they made some suggestions. They also suggested as far as the mix of species, you know, should we add in some maidenhairs here and there just to create more interest? So they were involved in the selection of trees.
So then when we go down, for example, to other areas of the Expo line, let's say Crenshaw, which will be in the 8th district, then we will have the input from the 8th district office and perhaps another set of different species that they have selected along the line. There is no specific plan to have a certain...
No, there's no specific plan, but we're going to be dealing with different neighborhoods as we go, and so different neighborhoods have different existing canopies, and we try to, as far as the existing trees, if we try to select tree species that are either going to match them or complement them. And then in terms of the size of the parkway, overhead utilities, and then, just kind of the flavor
So
of the
are we
community.
choosing trees in some areas? I know it's obviously different because the formula is that the council offices have input, and I would suspect that each council office has different issues about what they would choose as trees. Do we often, from the Bureau's perspective, try to influx the value of canopies in the tree selection? Or not necessarily so?
I'm assuming, I can't really speak to every project because I'm not on every project. But I think, in the projects that I've been involved in, we try to maximize canopy whenever possible. Again, we're limited by the size of the parkway, and we're limited by utilities. And those are the limits that we deal with. So we go as big as we can, with maintenance in mind.
Yeah, I've noticed that nobody likes the palm trees anymore, at least as it relates to this project that I've observed thus far along the way.
Thank you. Anything further?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lorenzen. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 10, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 10. Any issues sending it forthwith? We will send number 10 forthwith. So thank you, sir. Agenda item number 12 is our oral report for, I believe it's our quarterly update on the 6th Street Viaduct project. Ms. Allen on number 12.
Good morning. Julie Allen, Bureau of Engineering. I'm the program manager of the 6th Street Viaduct project. And I believe the executive officer is passing around a copy of the oral presentation so you can go along with me with the photos that I'll be discussing. I'm happy to report that since my last presentation in July, we've made significant progress in partnership with the Bureau of Contract Administration, and I'll go through some of the construction activities that occurred during this time. On the first photo page, you can see a photo of the remaining structure that exists on the east side of the LA River. As of last July, all of these columns and piers were still in place, and if you flip the page, you can see as of the title is Remaining Column and Temporary Access Bridge. That was the one remaining column at the end of September. And you can see in the photo, why I included this, is the sewer bypass line that's in place at the base of the column. This was due to the sewer collapse that occurred on Mission Road, so there's a temporary sewer bypass system in place that we didn't take down this last column until we were sure that we had sufficient protection for this bypass line, so we didn't cause any damage to the system. Also in the photo, you can see a temporary bridge that we had the contractor install across Mission Road so that they wouldn't put any load on the sewer in the area that collapsed, and also it crosses over the bypass system as well. So that remaining column was successfully removed on October 1st, and we had no problems or impacts to the sewer system. The next photo I included just to show a little bit of scale. It's demolition of a pier adjacent to the railroad tracks. If you see the scissor lifts in the photos, you can see construction workers standing next to the viaduct, just to give you a scale of how large the structure is that we're removing. The title on the top is Pier Demolition Adjacent to the East Railroad Tracks, and I apologize for not putting page numbers. I'll do that next time. It'll make it easier to navigate through. You can see that these stories these structures are several stories high. It's a significant structure and a lot of effort that goes into protecting facilities underneath and around demolition of the bridge. The next photo that I am showing is called Demolition over the LA River. During this last quarter, we removed the entire span over the LA River, including the 2 steel arches on each side of the center pier. This was a significant effort. We had to bring cranes into the river, and they had to manually remove the steel arch. With the crane, you can see on the right side of the photo, the leftover part of the arch that was on the east span. We proceeded then with the span on the west side. Everything was successfully removed, and all of the work in the river is now complete for the demolition phase. We'll be back into the river to begin work for the foundation and the viaduct package once the wet season is complete. During the last quarter, we also completed all of the railroad work. This last span that happened was over the East Railroad tracks. We had weekend shutdowns over each weekend during the month of October, and that allowed us to complete all of the spans and pier removals within the railroads, and we had no change orders or issues that occurred during those weekends, so that was a very successful operation. And what's shown in this photo here is they worked from the east side on the railroad tracks and on the west side adjacent to this one span that's remaining, and they had equipment still on top of it, so the only way they can take it down is to bring a crane and lower this 80,000-pound piece of equipment from the top of the deck down to the ground. So the next photo that I've shown is a current photo. The current work we have going on, the title is Demolition over Santa Fe. The board approved last Friday the closure of Santa Fe for 5 days, and this photo was taken yesterday morning. They began work on Monday, and by Tuesday morning they had already removed the entire deck and were working on the piers. As of this morning on my way here, this entire structure on the left side that you see is completely gone, and they're moving their way east, so they expect to complete the demolition of this span on schedule. This week they're working double shifts, swing shifts, and we'll complete the work and be able to reopen Santa Fe per the approved closure. So in moving forward on the demolition, the contractor will be moving from this point at Santa Fe and moving west towards Mateo Street, which is the western terminus of the existing bridge, and that work will be completed by the end of this year. So the next time I come here for a report, I should be able to let you know that that has been completed. So in addition to demolition of the bridge, we have several other activities going on, so I have some photos to share with you. In the 101 freeway, in the embankment on the west side, we have a storm drain, the city storm drain that's 45 inches in diameter that's in conflict with one of our new foundation columns. This storm drain had to be relocated. Unfortunately, it sits right under a 69-inch county storm drain. So to get to it, it's 20 feet deep in the embankment. We had to shore up the freeway. We had to remove the 69-inch county storm drain, realign the 45-inch city storm drain, rebuild the large county storm drain, and all of that had to be done within a month because we had to complete it before the wet season began because we had to bypass the storm drain flows. So I'm happy to report we were able to complete that bypass and the reconstruction of the county storm drain in time. And right now they're finishing the work in this area, the surface work. Just some photos here so you can see the activities that were going on. I'd like to point out that this work was added as a change order to the demolition package. The board approved this change order up to, it was about $1.5 million. It's not actually a change to the scope of work. It was intended to be a right-of-way package. All the utility relocations are part of right-of-way. But due to the urgency of completing it now with the demolition package, Caltrans agreed to have us move it and issue it as a change order. So total, including this change order, we're about 2%, a little over 2% for the whole project. If you take this out as a valid change order because it was scope of work, we basically just reassessed it from one package to another. We're just over 1% change orders for the entire project to date have executed. So that's pretty good considering the complexity and the challenges that we faced. So the next photo, we've also been demolishing.
I would agree with you on that,
All right.
Julie. So,
Thank you.
Go ahead.
The next photo here is called Demolition of Building at Parcel 22. I previously reported that we had a challenge with the adjacent property owner. We had a conjoined wall with the adjacent property owner and had difficulties figuring out what improvements needed to be done to the adjacent building to allow our demolition to begin. And we've completely resolved that problem with the adjacent owner now. And the contractor was able to complete the demolition of this building. There's a during construction photo as well as an after construction photo where the arrow is pointing there. And that allowed room for the foundation package to proceed. So the next photo is drilling that's occurring for the foundations. We have 22 10-foot diameter foundations for this bridge that go 160 feet deep. This photo is of what we're calling Foundation 10 Right. And the drill rig you can see in the photo, both a kind of an aerial view as well as a side view, they auger down with the casing 160 feet and put the rebar cage in and fill it all up with concrete. So it's a very big operation. It takes about a little over a week per foundation, and then they move on to the next one. So as you would expect from a project this size, we do have our challenges, so I'd like to highlight a couple of those for you. The first foundation that went in, 10 right, as they were about 100 feet deep, all the equipment and the casing sank about 2 to 3 feet, which is very unusual. And at that time, we stopped progress on this pile.
Would you repeat that?
Yes. As they were about 100 feet deep with the casing, so they install a casing and then they use a clamshell to scoop out the soil basically inside the casing. As they were installing the casing about 100 feet deep, the equipment at the top that does the drilling sank about 2 feet. As they moved the casing up and down to get a little more technical. It kind of sticks down in the clay at the bottom and they kind of move it up and down so that it doesn't stick, and then they continue pushing it down and scooping out the soil. While they were in that process of moving it up and down, everything sank 2 feet, about 2 to 3 feet. That's not typical, and so we weren't sure what was the cause of that, so we immediately halted work. The contractor installed concrete around it to stabilize the area and was able to move the equipment out of the way. And given the concern of not knowing what had occurred 100 feet deep, we asked the contractor to backfill the entire pile now with low cement slurry while we do an investigation of what possibly could have caused the settlement. We have our geotechnical report that conjectures that it's possible that the means and methods of the contractor have caused this settlement to occur by allowing material to come up from inside the bottom of the casing, but that's still under investigation, and we have the geotechnical work ongoing to verify the occurrence. But what will happen once we determine that the pile is still adequate, or the surrounding area, they'll re-drill back through the slurry and be able to complete the pile. We just need to verify if the soil around the pile is still adequate to take the loading, or we might have to make the pile deeper to be able to withstand the loading from the new bridge.
Okay.
So that's in the works. It happened last Friday. It's a new occurrence, and the contractor has moved on to the next pile, so it has not caused a delay to the project. And backfilling this pile was approximately $200,000. We've let the contractor know if we determine it was their means and methods, and we will expect to receive that back, or we won't be compensating them for the work that they had to do to repair or mitigate the damage that occurred. The second issue that has occurred recently is the contractor submitted a request for payment for reimbursement due to delay impacts from the sewer collapse. We had to stop work of the demolition for a couple of months while the sewer was rehabilitated enough for demolition work to complete. So we are reviewing the contractor's claim at this point, and I don't have anything to report on the progress of it. We'll be negotiating that with them. The next challenge that we have ahead is negotiation of the guaranteed max price for the viaduct package through the construction manager general contractor process. As each package comes along, we develop an estimate and negotiate the final price with the contractor. We're in the midst of doing that right now for the viaduct package, which is the largest package, and it's about $180 million. And it's a lot of effort and a lot of negotiation that is in progress right now. So by the time I report next time, I'll have an update. And the last challenge I wanted to discuss is a rain event that occurred in the river, and we had diversion in place. It was October 17th, so just after the start of the wet season. When the contractor started on a Friday night to check the weather report, they have to check the weather report daily, make sure there's a 5-day dry weather forecast in advance. Anything more than 40% rain, they have to pull everything out of the river so that there's no chance of being washed out. In this case, there was a 20% chance on Friday. By Sunday, it was raised to 40, and they chose to just reinforce the diversion that they had in place and not pull it out, and then a rain event occurred that night, and the water level raised in the river and washed down some of their diversion system. They have since retrieved all of the materials. It was sandbags and these aquadam materials. They've retrieved them all. They've repaired the center pier excavation that was there, and all the work is now complete in the river. But it was something that we're taking lessons learned from and making sure that work that's going to happen or not work over a weekend, we make sure that the contractor will be on call and not have this kind of occurrence again. We've notified the Regional Water Quality Control Board that as soon as it happened, and we've sent a follow-up report with our mitigation measures that occurred. We haven't heard back from them as of yet. So with community relations, sorry this is long, I wanted to let you know that we have an ongoing community outreach program. We have a 24-hour hotline that's posted that anyone can call at any time. We have a website that people can go to at any time. During this last quarter, we received 5 inquiries from community members and 8 complaints regarding dust or impacts from traffic, all of which have been responded to and are resolved. We sent 18 construction-related public notices out to the surrounding businesses and residences, and we had a public outreach meeting on September 22nd. So I just put a couple of examples of the notices that we send out down on this slide so you can see the information that we present to the public and the adjacent residents. And lastly, just letting you know we have upcoming work. There's the final right-of-way package, which we call Task Order D. We're negotiating the guaranteed maximum price now and expect to be able to bring that to the board and recommend award within the next couple of months. We're also going to complete the demolition, as I mentioned, from Santa Fe to Mateo. We'll be continuing the foundation installation through Task Order 4, and we'll be starting community outreach for the landscape package design, which is, we expect to have the recommendation for award for the task order for landscaping coming to the board within the next month or so. So that's all I have for the report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Allen, Commissioner Jacinto.
Julie, thank you for this quarterly report. I look forward to them. I put them in a package and just see. And from the last, we're not out of the ground yet, so we have some issues we've been dealing with. But thank you for taking care of this project and getting us to 1%, out of the ground. Not out of the ground yet. That's good. And we had to deal with the NOS, the sewer collapse, and that's a delay, and we're working that out. So these blips and issues that we have are to be expected while we're not out of the ground yet, too. So I just want to thank you for being diligent on this and for working with the contractors to take care of the sewer collapse and to keep everything online, too. We are on schedule, correct? There's no significant deviation from our overall timeline?
That's correct. The last package that we'll be awarding will dictate the final end date. The current schedule is to be complete by the end of 2019.
Okay.
So the final package will dictate that final date.
I'm anxious to, I think we're all anxious to learn about the geotech report for that one settling of that one pier. If that was just, if it's due to the methodology that the contractor is using too, well, let's adjust accordingly. But when would we have those results back?
I can provide a copy of the report to you, but we're doing additional field borings at this point. We've done one about 15 feet away from the foundation, and we're doing one currently adjacent and probably another one adjacent to validate the soil around the pile. They expect to complete by about November 11th to have the results of that available.
Okay. Thank you, Julie.
Anything, Commissioner Penning?
Hi, I just wanted to, I guess we're getting into rainy season, and I know they're predicting a dry winter, but they were totally wrong last year, so I continue to hold out hope for a nice wet winter. I presume that if there are delays due to rain, is that something that the contractor would try to invoice against as well?
The contracts that we have in Bureau of Engineering all include standard rain that they have to accommodate. I believe it's like 11 days of rain within their schedule. So if that amount of rain occurs, there would be no impact to the schedule. They have to accommodate that. If additional rain occurs and there's washout or other issues, then that would be something that we would consider as potentially a way to add time to the contract. But a lot of the work that they're doing at this point, they can work through a light rain. The piles are actually filled with water anyway while they're doing the drilling, so some amount of water or rain, as long as it's safe for the equipment to work in and the people, then they can work through it. So any standard amount of rain won't be a problem. If there are torrential rains or something way out of the ordinary, then that is a potential cause for extension of the contract time.
Okay. And then Commissioner Jacinto asked one of the key questions, which is about our schedule, construction schedule. How are we doing on the budget?
The budget overall, we have met every target that we've had so far. All the packages, foundations, demolition, all of the right-of-way packages are within the budget. We have very limited contingency. This project is funded probably $412 million with federal and state grants. It's very tight, both on the construction cost and the city staff costs that are able to support it. So there's limited contingency available, but at this point, our estimates show that we're within budget, with the caveat that the largest package that we're negotiating the final price on will make or break as far as the budget goes. But up to this point, we're within our budget.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Anything further?
I wanted to ask,
Commissioner Davis.
in terms of our time, we're within budget. Are we within time according to your schedule on the project thus far?
Yes, everything that has been constructed to date is well within our schedule. We're not experiencing any delays. The delay that the contractor experienced for the demolition due to the sewer collapse was localized and doesn't affect the total duration of the project. It's because he had equipment ready to perform work that he was unable to move forward with that work, but it didn't affect the overall project duration.
Great. Well, I wanted to personally thank you for virtually walking us through the project and the site. That saves some of our shoes from getting the dust on them, even though we do probably need to go out there to see it at some point in time. So I have the greatest appreciation for your presentation here today, and particularly understanding the challenges as every construction project will have. And it seems as if that you are prepared, as we would expect that you would be, to confront the challenges that we find in this project, and we look forward to future reports, future quarterly reports, and hopefully continued progress of being within budget and on time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Great, thank you. Then we will accept the oral report. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Mr. Executive Officer, have we cleared the desk?
Yes, you have.
Then we are adjourned, everyone. Thank you.